Well, thank you, everybody, and good morning, and welcome to this Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce webinar entitled BBC Across the UK. And it's a great pleasure to welcome Stuart Thomas, who's head of Midlands, BBC England. He's responsible for BBC local radio stations and regional output across the Midlands. These 7 radio stations which he heads are BBC Coventry and Warwickshire, BBC Radio Derby, BBC Hereford and Worcester, BBC Radio Lincolnshire, BBC Radio Northampton, BBC Radio Nottingham and BBC Radio Shropshire. In his previous role for the BBC as head of regional and local programmes in the East Midlands, Stuart headed up regional output across the TV, radio and online for the East Midlands region, including BBC East Midlands Today, Inside Out, Sunday Politics and 3 BBC local radio stations. Stuart joined the BBC in 2009 from ITV, where he was responsible for their flagship regional news programme, London Tonight, as well as being a member of the team which manages ITV News at ITN. Stuart began his career in television at Channel 4 in 2002, running the news operation on the Channel 4 breakfast programme, Rise. So this morning, we're going to hear from Stuart primarily about the new exciting investment by the BBC in the West Midlands. And he's going to talk for about 20 minutes. Then we have a Q&A. So if you could put your questions in the Q&A thing at the bottom of your screen, I'd be able to ask the questions to Stuart. So welcome everybody. Thank you very much. Over to you, Stuart.
Thank you, Steve, and hello to everybody. As Steve said, I'm going to talk you through some of the exciting plans announced by the Director General just a few weeks ago. But to start with, I'd just like to recap where we are at the moment in the Midlands. So right now, the 6:30 news programme on BBC One, Midlands Today, and the other programmes together across England add up to about 4 million people. In the Midlands, our 6:30 programme is doing extraordinarily well. At some point in the week, about 2 million people will watch Midlands Today. That's a 41% weekly reach to people across the West Midlands. And in terms of audiences, that 6:30 slot has been the most watched programme pretty much every day throughout the year so far. And in fact, for the first 23 weeks of 2021, it was the most watched programme on any channel at any time. Occasionally we get big hits, Line of Duty, which will overtake it, for example, but generally the regional news programmes at 6:30 are the most watched programmes on television. Almost 20 million users access our local online news services across England, and you can see on your screen, hopefully, some of the other things that we do in terms of the journalism in the West Midlands. And on top of that, already we have teams from BBC Three, of course, The Archers is made here, Asian Network, regional and local programming, and the BBC Academy. You know, our investment in the creative economy makes a real impact on the West Midlands. Some figures we've got: Birmingham attracted a record number of tourists in 2019 as fans of Peaky Blinders flocked to explore the world associated with that BBC One hit. 42.8 million tourists visiting Birmingham last year is, I think, an extraordinary number. And also the fact that those numbers increased massively has been largely since the start of Peaky Blinders. And of course, Father Brown there as well, enjoying international success, reaching over 100 million homes, which is just, again, an extraordinary number for that programme being made in our region. In terms of what it does for the economy, we know from the recent KPMG report into the BBC's impact that we've invested over 100 million in skills and training over the last 4 years, including 335 apprenticeships in 1920, with a lifetime earnings uplift for those apprentices of £91 million. And of course, the BBC's apprenticeship programme is based right here in Birmingham. We're the biggest high-spending commissioner of new intellectual property among the UK broadcasters in the UK. We invest a total of 70 million in research and development between 1617 and 1920, And a relatively recent study found that for every £1 of R&D the BBC invests, a further £5 to £9 of social and economic benefit for the UK economy. So you can see the benefits of us spending. So on to Across the UK, which is this title we've given to our desire to produce more content and do more things outside of the capital, and instead do them across the UK. As you can see, it's the blueprint for what we're calling the biggest transformation in decades. The ambitious plans are for a power and decision making to be moved away from London and to be spread across the UK. It's a phrase I'm going to use quite a lot. Over the next 6 years, the BBC will shift its creative and journalistic centre away from London, and they represent bottom change and cement our commitment to better reflect, represent, and serve all parts of this country. So we'll be investing at least 700 million outside of London, moving at least 1,000 jobs. We want more than 100 drama and comedy titles to reflect communities outside London, 2/3 of BBC Three spend to be outside of London, and key daytime strands from a number of different outlets to be based out of London. And we're going to change the way we commission for TV, radio, and for BBC News, making sure that we represent people and audiences across the country in a much better way. And you can see some of the detail of that there as well. And we're going to invest in local reporting. So we're going to have a new network of digital community reporters based in towns and areas that have never really benefited any regional TV presence, telling stories that reflect communities and enhancing our journalism. And providing local bulletins for more than 50 areas across the UK on BBC Sounds, making sure that local information is easy to find. And supporting 1,000 apprentices in any year through our pilot training agency that I'll get on to in a minute as well. So what exactly does this mean for the West Midlands? Well, just to kind of pause from what I'm saying here, just to say, we're calling this Across the UK, but without a doubt, the biggest beneficiary from all of this work is Birmingham and the West Midlands by some considerable margin. Manchester and Salford obviously benefited hugely from the previous BBC move out of London. This is much more about spreading things out in many different places rather than building a single base somewhere else. But having said that, a lot of it is coming to the and by far the biggest winner in all of this. So the proposals include Birmingham, really, you'll know, is Europe's youngest city, and it is going to be the future of the BBC, the place where the talent of tomorrow is discovered and developed, and the hub for our youth-focused brands. We'll build on the region's TV production strength with more primetime brands joining the Great British Menu in the Midlands. The Asian network will be completely consolidated in Birmingham. So at the moment, part of the Asian network's in Birmingham, some of it's in London. The Asian network will become a Birmingham product completely, and Newsbeat is moving to Birmingham. So that's the programs and the news programs and the news bulletins for Radio 1, as well as One Extra and the Asian network. Now that that's an absolutely massive move for Radio 1 to move all of their news output to Birmingham rather than London. And the news data team will largely relocate to Birmingham. So these are the people who do the data journalism that you see a lot of on the BBC website. So when it says put in your postcode to find out how this affects you, that's kind of classic data journalism. That's really an important way to reach the audience now. We've said at least one primetime drama and entertainment show in the region, and a lot more from BBC Three. And I think the BBC Three story is really interesting in Birmingham. They started off moving a team to make short form content in Birmingham. We've now split. The people who make programs in BBC Three now work for BBC Studios, as opposed to the people who commission them and work on the other aspects of them, who work for the public service arm. And that means that we've actually got 2 BBC Three teams in Birmingham now, and they're not just working on content for BBC Three, they're pitching elsewhere as well, which is really exciting. We want to launch BBC Radio Wolverhampton. We successfully trialled that earlier in the year, from January to March this year, along with and Sunderland and other parts of the UK. All of that is subject to the usual regulatory requirements. I'm talking about Ofcom here in terms of launching a new service, but we're really hopeful about that. We're also talking about new learning hubs in both Birmingham and Wolverhampton, creating exciting opportunities for young people across the West Midlands. We're going to pilot that apprentice training agency I mentioned will be in the West Midlands, which is a really important part of our future. Doubling our commitment to apprentices and supporting 1,000 through any year, some places across the UK. But again, with the West Midlands being right at the very heart of that, and building on our position as a youth hub for the BBC. Now, of course, there is already plenty of network content made in the West Midlands, and this is a massive story about bringing new content to the West Midlands. But I don't want to forget that we are in a much better place than we were a few years ago. Now, The Archers, of course, has always been made in the West Midlands, and we're extraordinarily proud of the longest-running daily serial in the world. Its 70th anniversary. It's the biggest show on BBC Sounds for downloads. It is still a really, really important part of what we do. Doctors Made at the Drama Village is, of course, an absolute staple of daytime. We've got Peaky Blinders, Man Like Naveen, Canal Boat Diaries, The Greatest Dancer, The Rap Game, Our Dementia Choir, the new All That Glitters, which has been doing really well and filmed in Birmingham's Jewellery Quarter, and things like One Extra Live, Radio 2's Biggest Weekend, all made in the Midlands and making waves right across the BBC and right across the UK. A quick word for this, really important for us, is Coventry City of Culture. We're the main partner. You'll know that it's now running from May next year, and as well as commissioning some really big programmes to kind of mark Coventry's culture past. So a fantastic arena on Delia Derbyshire, who of course worked for the Radiophonic Workshop and created the Doctor Who theme, as well as programmes about the cathedral and the car industry in Coventry. We've also committed to how we cover Coventry throughout the year, and I think it's really important that we bring these big brands to the city. And last week, Radio 4's Any Questions was on the road for the very first time since the start of the pandemic. They went back on the road in a socially distanced way in Coventry Cathedral, and it was fantastic to hear that programme back on the road and in Coventry and talking about the West Midlands, talking about the City of Culture. Chris Mason gave me a ring a couple of days beforehand and talked to him about how important it was and how exciting it was, and it was great to hear about the place. He really does want to get involved when he comes out to places, and I know he's promised he'll be back in the West Midlands very soon. So that's that. We've also got a programme on their signature event, which was originally going to be the launch event, now the signature event that's coming up in a couple of weeks. We've commissioned a special programme for that. It's going out on BBC One on the Monday afterwards, which I think off the top of my head is Monday, June the 7th at 7:30 on BBC One, both across the East and West Midlands. That will showcase what happened for the big signature event on the Saturday. It then goes out on BBC 4 at 7 o'clock on the Wednesday, as well as going out on the BBC News channel. So we're making sure that as many people as possible see the West Midlands and what's going on in Coventry. And then in terms of what's on the way, we've got My Name is Leon, currently filming in Birmingham, BBC Two's Hospital, returning for a 7th series at the University Hospitals, Coventry and Warwickshire. You Don't Know Me, drama adaptation filmed in Birmingham, coming to BBC One and the iPlayer later this year. And of course, the BBC is the broadcast partner for the 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, which obviously take place from July to August. But there's a huge cultural programme that I'm sure you're aware of that goes alongside the Commonwealth Games. And while it's hardly been ideal for Coventry City Culture to have moved their year from May to May, it does actually mean that when they come to an end, they can hand over the cultural baton from one West Midlands event to another. And I think we're really excited about how we can weave those two things together as Coventry City of Culture comes to an end, and then the cultural programme for Birmingham 2022 it comes underway. I should apologise for my cold, by the way. We've had it for 2 weeks now, and it's horrible to listen to, but I'll keep going. So look, a quote here from Tim Davey, the boss, talking about how important it is that we reach as many people as we can. currently reaching 91% of adults every week for nearly 18 hours. That's, you know, some really strong figures, but we cannot and must not be in any way complacent. We've got to shift our focus from the internal and from London to making sure that we are seen right across the UK. And I think, you know, we all understand how the West Midlands may have been served very well locally, in my view, with local radio and regional television, and we do have some big brands, but you know, we can do much more in the West Midlands. And for me, this is the most exciting time to be in the Midlands. It really is, because we've never had this level of investment or this exciting future ahead of us. So that's where we are. That's the plan as it stands, and I'm really happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Stuart. That's very interesting. Let me kick off. Please put your questions in the question and answer bit, and in the meantime, I've just got one or two questions. I'm just wondering what the driver was for this new investment. We've heard about the government's levelling up agenda. We know that the licence fee issue may be a bit contentious this year with the government. Is that the driver, or is it the BBC coming to a realisation that really they do need to focus less on London, perhaps less on Salford, and more levelling up right across the country?
I think we've got to be relevant to everybody in the UK, and I think there's a real danger. You know, London is a different country in many ways to the rest of the UK. And I think there's a real understanding from the leadership right at the top of the BBC that to be relevant and for people to really reflect people's lives, you know, you can't have all the money and all the program making in London. It's got to be spread out. I'm going to say it again, across the UK. And I think this really is about addressing that. And it was genuinely transformative moving so much to Salford. And I think, you know, if you sit and watch Breakfast for any length of time on BBC One, and you see that, you know, the experts are all from Salford University, or they're a doctor from Manchester, just that kind of variety of guests and the type of people you can get on, as opposed to guests from London universities and London experts, you do see a different selection of faces on that programme. But I think, you know, we did that. We made an impact in Salford, in Manchester, and now it's about how do we reflect the whole of the UK in a much better way. Yeah, I mean, that's when there's the issue of that investment, isn't there, and the regional investment. And one of the issues that I think has been raised, maybe with us at the Chamber, is in terms of the output from the BBC. Sometimes you do feel there is very much it's either London, the North, or Scotland, and yep. Maybe some of these other regional areas like the Midlands, which obviously is a really important region in the UK, certainly as far as manufacturing is concerned, maybe doesn't have that profile it might do. So do you think this might help raise the profile of the Midlands on the national stage for the BBC? I think it absolutely has to. We absolutely have to reflect and better reflect people's lives across the UK back to other people in the UK. And you know, Peaky Blinders is amazing, and I'm definitely not doing it down, but it shouldn't be the only programme you think of when you think of Birmingham on national television. And there are plenty of other places, you know, from the northeast being one of the top of the list as well, where you just don't see enough of them on television. You know, in entertainment, in comedy, in drama. You know, it doesn't have to be just about news coverage. You know, everywhere in the UK should be reflected by the national broadcaster. So I think it really is an understanding around that. And I think in March you announced a new partnership with the regions Create Central Organisation and the West Midlands Combined Authority. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Well, we're working really closely with Create Central. I think it's really important that I've just come up. My internet connection is unstable. I hope you can still hear me. I think it's really important that we work with the bodies that are there locally to help develop some of these. You know, some of these things, like the apprentice training agency, will need partners. And in terms of Create Central, I've used this example many times, and apologies, Steve, if you've heard it, but maybe some of your delegates. But what happened in Cardiff with Bad Wolf, where a production company, for those who don't know, Bad Wolf's a production company set up by a couple of people who'd worked on Doctor Who. Bad Wolf moved into Cardiff, and what it did for the creative industry there, with lots and lots of companies all springing up, and now there are multiple production companies in Cardiff, but also the support industries, whether you need carpenters who can build sets or dressmakers who can build who can make the costumes, you know, just business after business after business related to that industry have sprung up over the few years since, to the point where there's now a flourishing industry there that you can go there and you can work in any part of that industry. And that's what we need to do for Birmingham. And by working with you know, the groups that you mentioned and others, I think we can really help the whole industry. So it's not about the BBC moving some people here and, you know, happily making programs for ourselves here. It's about building the entire industry in the region.
Excellent, thank you. So we've got some questions that have come in. So one from Helen Miles Gunner-Cook. I think it's key that the UK feels connected, not just mutually connected to London. How is the BBC making all areas of the UK visible to each other?
Hi, Helen. Well, I think this goes back to what I was saying to Steve. You know, I think more programs that are made in places and that are of a place are the absolute way to do that. And I think, you know, when Newsbeat comes to Birmingham and Radio 1's news is full of voices from Birmingham, because at the moment, you know, if you're a reporter on Newsbeat, yes, if you're working on a big story, you can go to Liverpool and cover it there and come back and broadcast it. But if you're working on an average day-to-day story, you'll probably go out into London and interview experts in London, come back and put the program together. That, you know, watch the news. That's what happens on all network news channels. They'll be doing that in Birmingham, and I think that's absolutely key. So making sure that big BBC brands are based in lots of different places around the UK, I think are the way to do that. And going back to what we said earlier, you know, comedies, dramas, you know, not all based in London and the Southeast. You know, they've got to reflect the UK back to itself.
Thank you. Question from Andrew Simpson of COSAM Entertainment. If we have an idea for a documentary show, what do we do to produce it, and how do we get it commissioned?
Hi, Andrew. So we have quite a formal commissioning process, and if you go on the BBC commissioning website, you'll find all the details of commissioners. The commissioner for England, so for programmes that are particularly about areas of England, is called Aisling O'Connor. You'll find her details on the website. There's a picture of her, details of how to get hold of her, how she runs her pitching process, and that's your best way in. You know, I'm not going to say it's easy, but we're always interested in ideas.
And I think some of these are pretty specific questions. There's Julie from Cohesion with a similar question. A community project is teaming up with us on a youth idea, which is so exciting and interesting that it needs to be seen by others. It can be linked to the run up to the Commonwealth Games. How do we let you know about it? So I think it's a broader question. Some of these questions is, if you have an idea, I mean, who do you contact at the BBC? I think that sums up those questions.
Yeah, so if you want to make a program yourself or pitch an idea for an actual documentary, then Aisling's your person. If you want coverage for something that's going on in terms of the news, then the planning desk at Midlands Today are your best bets, and you can give them a call and just ask for planning.
Excellent, thank you. So could you say a little bit more about the BBC Drama Village? Because I assumed that most of what happened at the BBC was around the mailbox. Not knowing too much about the Drama Village, you know, are we talking here about Pinewood Studios? Are we what does it look like, and what does it do?
Steve, I've got a terrible admission here, which is that I took over the whole of the Midlands in September last year, and I was due to visit the Drama Village in early 2020. And I haven't actually got there yet because this pandemic hit, and ever since then I've been stuck in my upturned boat. So I haven't been, but it is, it's a powerhouse of production in terms of doctors. Producing a daily TV drama is an easy feat, and as well as everything else that they do from Father Brown and others. So I'm really looking forward to going, and I can't tell you much more than that.
Oh, I was going to ask you generally about BBC and BBC News output, with all the suggestions of editorial reviews and things like this. This seems to be a hot topic at the moment in terms of what we've had with the Dyson report. But we've also got this new concept of GB News, which seems to be, nobody actually quite knows what it is. It may be like Fox News in the US. How do you feel about that? How do you feel, first of all, about the editorial review for news and coverage within the UK for the BBC, but also you've got Sky, obviously you've got ITN, which you know, but a news channel which maybe say right-wing leanings, similar to Fox for the first time, makes it even more important, isn't it, that BBC maintains its position as being neutral, effectively. So how do you see the development of news now?
I think it's fascinating times. I think it will be interesting to see how GB News does. I think they just announced today they're coming on air on the 13th of June. So we've got a launch date now. Tim Davies said when he first started, he gave his key things that he wanted the BBC to be about. And one of those was impartiality. And in fact, very quickly launched a training scheme to make sure that anyone who comes into contact with any form of journalism understands what we mean by impartiality, because it can be a difficult concept. You cannot be impartial on racism. We're not impartial about genocide. We call it due impartiality, but it is the BBC's role to be the trusted, the trusted voice. And obviously, the outcome of the Dyson review it is disappointing for everybody who works at the BBC to find out that there was underhand journalism going on. It's not what any of us, I started as a journalist. I spent many years as a broadcast journalist and as an editor. I in both commercial and the BBC, and I never met anyone when I worked at LBC, when I worked in commercial radio, when I worked at ITN, who wanted to skew the news in any particular way. We were never, despite the conspiracy theories you may read on social media, I've never been told how to tell a story, what story to tell, and what my company or my corporation's official on the news was. It's about trust and editorial judgment, and so I think we just have to make sure that we are as impartial as we absolutely can be, and deliver the news in a clear way, and other people can do different things.
Thank you. And I suppose when I was reading about this and the news on the Dyson report, I looked at NBC in the States, I looked at ABC in Australia, and it was headline news, which impacts presumably around the world and the world service on the reputation of the BBC. Are you concerned about that? Do you think this is a storm in the teacup, or do you think it's needs long-term structural editorial review?
Well, I have no doubt there will be further reviews and further investigations. I think ultimately, I don't believe that it's in any way representative of the BBC of 2021, what went on with this one person on this one programme all those years ago. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't, lift the rug to make sure there's nothing going on now. But it's not the BBC that I see that I come to work in.
Thank you. Question here about young people. Stuart, this is from Claudia. Stuart, you mentioned the importance of Birmingham's young people in the BBC's future. With Birmingham's diverse cultural offering, is it the hope of the BBC that they will be able to attract a more diverse range of talent and level the playing field?
100%. I mean, absolutely 100%. We need to, when I talk about better reflecting the UK, it's not just about the diversity in location around, seeing more Newcastle, seeing more Middlesbrough, seeing more Birmingham. It's about the diversity of people that you hear on the radio, and we absolutely have got to get better at that. And I think one of the things I've talked about before is the problem for the BBC in the Midlands before was that there wasn't a career. You couldn't make your career in the West Midlands. You could get into the BBC, but was there enough going on in the BBC in the Midlands to stay in the Midlands? Or in fact, was there enough going on in the creative economy in the Midlands to stay in the Midlands? What I believe this announcement does in terms of all of these different things that will be happening in the Midlands, and then I think what will grow up around it elsewhere, means that if you want to work in the Midlands for your entire career, you can do. You can come into the BBC as an apprentice, you can go off and do this, you can do that, you can go grow through this, that and the other, and you can spend your entire career somewhere in the Midlands, whether that be within the BBC or externally. And because you haven't been able to do that until now, real excluding factor for some people about coming to work for the BBC. So I want people to believe that they can stay in the, some people don't want to go to Salford or go to London, and why would you? Stay in the Midlands. So I genuinely believe that all of this will have a transformative effect on who we can attract to come and work for the BBC, and therefore what our workforce is like.
Thank you. Let me see. There's an extremely long question here. Right. Just on, I was going to ask you about the license fee.
Yep.
License fee, obviously coming up for renewal 2022 for negotiation with the government. Long term, do you expect this to be the base upon which the BBC is founded? And I don't know if this is correct, but apparently raises £3.2 billion for
Sounds about right.
So is that the way forward, do you think, for the BBC, or are we going to see inevitably that they're going to be more open to advertising and funding through that method?
Whenever I worked in commercial radio and commercial television, I can tell you the companies were very, very against the BBC taking advertising because they don't want to lose, there's only a certain share of amount of money that's ever going to be spent on advertising, and they do not want the BBC to be taking a big chunk of that cake, if you like. So I'm not sure. Some people would say the BBC should take adverts. I'm not sure the commercial broadcasting world wants that for a start. I don't think they think that is the right way forward. Certainly not everyone there. I genuinely don't know where this debate will end. There's a lot. It may not be for everyone, but there's a lot positive about the license fee and the way it helps fund the BBC. And if we were a fully commercial organisation, we would not, I would imagine, be running local radio stations in some of our smaller counties because they just wouldn't be viable. And look at what's happened in commercial local radio. Well, it doesn't really exist anymore. It's all networked from London with huge regions, opt-out breakfast shows or opt-out drive time shows, but not a lot that's local at all. I'm not dissing what they've done at all, and I've got many good friends who work in commercial radio, but that's the model they've had to adapt to survive. If you want public service, and that includes local regional news, local radio, which is still extraordinarily popular and brings a lot of people to the BBC who don't access it in any other way, then you need to find a way to fund it that is not relying on commercial money.
And of course, some European publicly funded organisations are now doing it through general taxation, aren't they? But presumably the danger with just including the BBC within general taxation is that you're even more at the whim of the government as to how much money you can actually receive through that method, and that therefore impacts on partiality, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably won't get into too much more detail about our funding. It's not my area of expertise, but I would say that some of the things we've talked about in terms of Birmingham will rely on us getting a licence fee settlement from the government for 22 that is in line with the kind of numbers we are happy for. Some of these things, Newsbeat moving to Birmingham is absolutely, it's already underway. It's been planned. It will happen. Some of the other things like local radio services for Wolverhampton and open learning centres will rely on us getting the kind of investment we'll need to do that.
Excellent. So question here from Nicola Wilson. Hi Stuart, how do I find details regarding the apprenticeship programme so I can pass the information on to my niece who is desperate to get a kickstart into the media?
Hi Nicola, everything is on the BBC Careers website. As it happens, all apprenticeship opportunities are advertised on there. As I said, the apprentice training agency is a bit further down the line, relies on some funding agreements, but and we're working in partnership with others on that, and it will happen. I really hope. But we've not got a massive apprentice training scheme already, and if you go to the BBC Careers website, everything you need comes up there.
Yeah, another question, presumably from member Carla Fields, with new people arriving into Birmingham through the BBC. Presumably you'll have accommodation requirements for all of them, and that the BBC will be looking to place them, and will there be opportunities for local businesses to pitch to you for that sort of work?
Yeah, I had a really interesting call yesterday that was set up by some of my colleagues in news with a couple of case studies of people who had made the move to Birmingham previously from London for their own career reasons. And then a whole load of people whose departments are planned to move to Birmingham, considering whether they want to make a move. And it was absolutely fascinating to hear their questions, everything from parking and schools to playgrounds and transport. So it was fantastic to just be able to talk to those people about what an amazing place it is, and all of the people who've made the move were massive advocates for the city and for the region. So it was a really interesting session. I really enjoyed that yesterday. And yeah, of course, we're going to be working with local businesses and with locals to try and find ways to sort people out as they want to, if they want to make a move from London or Salford to Birmingham as their departments move. It's exciting.
And something else, which is one thing that I always find that's slightly irritating about BBC One, if you don't mind me saying so, is when you're watching the news on HD and then it comes to BBC Midlands, you have to turn off HD to go back to whatever non-HD is called. And I believe that you're changing that.
We are changing that. It's very complicated, but the first lots of equipment that will allow that to happen have gone into the mailbox in Birmingham. We're rolling that out across the country, and then later this year we should have a fully it's very boring technical stuff, but we should have a fully HD transmission chain out of our regional news galleries into BBC One, and we'll be able to carry the regional news programmes on BBC One HD. They may not fully be HD to start with, but they'll be there on the channel, and they'll prevent you having to turn over or watch that strange red slide for quite a long time.
We can watch Nick Owen, warts and all.
Exactly. There are no warts.
No, I know.
Flawless.
Perish the thoughts. So you've talked about a lot of the questions about documentary making and how can they get involved. BBC Three in particular is launching a documentary opportunity for local producers to tell original stories from the region. And that's clearly at the heart of what you've been talking about. Let's get the regional stories out there. So essentially, this is something that BBC Three is going to be focusing on.
That's a big thing from BBC Three in the coming months, and perhaps once we got the details, if there's lots of people who are interested, if I can circulate it via the chamber, that would be that'd be marvelous. As soon as the details are fully announced, I'll make sure that everyone gets those details. But that's that's another important strand coming up.
Excellent. And you talked about the new digital community, so a new network of community digital reporters to help bring journalism closer to communities. Is that going to be built from the academy with young people out there in the communities, getting a diverse group of people? Is that the plan?
I think we're thinking probably some people with a bit of experience for those roles to start with. But I mean, ultimately, we want a path through our apprenticeships into those kind of roles. So certainly for the future, we'd want to be building our talent locally and then moving them into journalism roles, into technical roles, into whatever roles they're interested in.
Excellent. Right. Anybody else got any questions? Put them in the Q&A slot before we finish. I think we've had about 7 questions, and I think we've answered all of them. Okay, well, look, Stuart, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been really helpful, really useful. And I have to say, we want to thank you on behalf of the Chamber, because we've never had as much engagement with the BBC since you have taken over as head, and it's really great that you're involved locally, and you're interested in talking to our members and getting involved with us, and we're incredibly grateful for all that you're doing. And you're going to be judging the Chamber Awards, I gather. So a little bit plug for that in July. So that will be great, and thank you so much for doing that. Thank you everybody for tuning in today. It's been really interesting, and best of luck, Stuart.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite, and do stay in touch. And if anyone's got any more queries, drop me a line. I'm really happy. I want BBC to be part of Birmingham, not just plonked in the middle and delivering out. We need to be part of what's going on.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody.